Kia ora whānau, tēnā tātou katoa, nau mā haramai, and welcome to this evening's Centre for Health Hauora Kōrero. Ko Natalie Hilterman tōku ingoa, and I'll be asking all the pātai for our kōrero I tēnei pō. Tonight we'll be discussing breath and breathing. It is something that is with us when we're born and something that is with us until we pass on. I don't think we really realise how important breathing is until something happens to us, which makes us really focus on improving the way that we breathe. So tonight you'll hear a little bit about why breathing is important, strategies to improve your breathing, and hopefully some gold nuggets of information to improve your overall hauora through breath. I'll pass over to our director, Anna Rolliston, who'll open up our kōrero. Ngā mihi, Anna.
Tēnā koutou katoa, ngā mihi mahana kia koutou. Thanks for coming along this evening. Usually we start these hauora kōrero with either a whakatauki or a karakia, but tonight we're going to do something different considering the topic. Hopefully you're all sitting somewhere comfortably in a chair perhaps, and we're just going to do a couple of breaths to ground us for this kōrero today in place of our karakia. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a breath in for a count of 4, and then we're going to slowly breathe out for a count of 6. So breathe in. And out. And repeat. And out. Now, I don't know about you, but I feel significantly less anxious after those 2 short breaths than I did when I said my greeting to you all. So that might be the key message for this evening. Kia ora, Nat.
Oh, kia ora, Anna. Kia ora whānau. What I will do now is we'll just do a quick whakawhanaungatanga and go around our tipu tonight and just introduce everyone. So if I could start with Hannah. Do you want to introduce yourself, please, Hannah? Kia ora.
Kia ora whānau. My name's Hannah. I am a clinical exercise physiologist here at the Centre for Health, and I get the privilege of doing all of our cardiopulmonary exercise tests, ECG stress tests, and overseeing our exercise clinic. Yeah.
Kia ora, Hannah. Nan?
Kia ora koutou. My name is Nan McKenzie, and I started my professional working life as a physical education teacher, 1962, and since then, through the decades, I've taught PE in various schools. I've been a careers advisor, a guidance counsellor, a student counsellor. I've run courses in career choices and changes for young unemployed, for older unemployed, for women choices, career choices and changes. And so this decade, however, not this decade, this century really, I have worked with Anna to set up the cardiac clinic, which was the forerunner for what is now the Centre for Health, this amazing, wonderful, not facility, but all the things we do. And I'm now a client, and these brilliant people who know so much look after me and help me manage my health with my various heart issues that sort of pop up every now and then.
Oh, beautiful name. Kia ora. Anna, did you want to go next, please?
Kia ora anō whānau. Ko Anna Rolliston tōku ingoa. I'm Managing Director here at the Centre for Health, and like I said, thanks so much for coming along to listen to the kōrero tonight.
Kia ora, Anna. Mana?
Hey, kia ora, kia ora. My name is Mana Davis. I guess I'm the new breath coach here. I've just really, it's a passion of mine, breathing. It's changed my life. I've seen it work in other people's life. And, you know, it's just a pleasure to take on this new role and start to hopefully share all the good stuff that I've learned over the years and help people to start to look at managing their health through using and learning about the breath. Yeah, so kia ora, everybody.
Kia ora, mana. And Carolyn? Kia ora.
Kia ora, kia ora. Thank you very much for inviting me to come along and join your meeting this evening. I've been really looking forward to this. I'm a respiratory and sleep and general medicine doctor. I'm working at the hospital. I've been in New Zealand for 10 years, and it's just great to be here and be part of what you're doing this evening. So thank you.
Kia ora, Carolyn. And everyone at home, I'm Nat again, and I just asked the pātai and listen to all of the amazing whakaaro that comes from our incredible panels. So Anna, did you want to just set the scene for our kōrero tonight around the breath and what we'll be discussing?
Yeah, sure. So it was really interesting when we were thinking about breath as a topic for one of these hauora kōrero, because it was about how to help whānau to recognise the importance of breathing, and how we might entice more people to listen this evening without advertising. Like, how do you get people to be really excited about breathing when we do it every day? And we've done it from the day we were born, as you said, Nat, until the day that we're no longer here anymore. And I think we used some te reo Māori in the advertising, and it said ha ki roto, ha ki waho, which just means breathe in and breathe out. And so what we did to open tonight hopefully gave everyone a little bit of taste of the power of your breath and changing from where you were to somewhere else. And that's kind of where the conversation is going tonight. But from a te ao Māori perspective, the breath is the connection to everything else. So it's really super important physiologically. We breathe in oxygen, and that oxygen circulates around our body, and we use it to make energy. And we breathe out carbon dioxide because we make carbon dioxide as a waste product and we need to get rid of it. So there's that physiological aspect that's super important. But in te ao Māori, we talk about that the breath, we use it to connect. So we might connect to something that's higher than us. We might even use it to connect to Papatūānuku, to be more grounded to the earth. And so from a, you guys hopefully know now that the Centre for Health is really focused on a holistic way of managing health. And so there's so much significance in this conversation about breathing that, covers the realm from real medical, what's important, illness, managing lung issues, all the way through to the spiritual realm and how the breath connects us in that space and everything in between. So I'm really looking forward to the kōrero. I'm totally not the expert tonight. These guys are all way more expert than me. So I'm kind of looking forward to sitting back and hearing.
Everyone else leading it, Anna.
Yeah.
Love it. Awesome. All right, well, why don't we start at the beginning then? Like, we're talking about breathing. Why is it so important for our health? Should we start with you, Carolyn?
So, from a medical point of view, there are an awful lot of common chronic medical conditions that our local patients and family and friends suffer from. So in the local community, we see a large amount of asthma and chronic airways disease, COPD, and some more sort of acute conditions, so pneumonias, and we're still struggling with the current COVID issues. So I think all of our respiratory patients and all of our cardiac and general medical patients can at times suffer from respiratory symptoms, including breathlessness and coughing. And breathlessness can be really, really distressing. So I think it's really important that we try and support all of our patients and family and friends who are struggling with breathlessness symptoms. And I think it's important that we should try to teach ourselves and teach our patients and family friends how to think about their breathing, control their breathing, because it will really have a great impact on their quality of life with whatever path they're on or whatever condition they may be handling.
So that's kind of like the physiological kind of side of breathing, right? Does somebody want to have a kōrero about the mental health side of kind of breathing and the impact there? Mana? Nan?
None.
Mana first?
Oh, yeah. No, it's exciting to hear just this talks. I'm just sitting here like trying to contain myself. So thank you for giving me the chance to say something. Yeah, look, I think from my perspective, like breathing is like a lost art. It's like the missing pillar in health at the moment. And it's like a secret that's being found, and I'm excited that it's suddenly getting a chance to get voiced a lot more, especially here and especially for our people at the moment. It seems to be that everyone's looking for other ways to find more health and ways to manage your health, and this is a real key way to doing that. And from a more of a mental well-being perspective, I think it's important because, you know, we know that stress affects our body and our mind, and we kind of can tie things now. I think a lot of us can tie breathing into being stressed, or I need to relax, so I need to take a deep breath and just, you know, chill. So I think some of us are quite aware of it, but there's more to it. It's an art. It's like going to a gym. It's like, you know, having to eat the right foods. Breathing is its own skill. It's its own tool, which can be really developed. And it's exciting because it's got so much whakapapa to it. It's old, it's ancient, you know, it's scientific, it's proven. The old people talked about it. The old people use it in waiata. The old people use it in karakia and chanting, and all those beautiful things that we learn are gifts, are keys to figuring out how to live life better with our breath. Because when our breath is out of sync and when our breath is out of rhythm, we start to get out of rhythm too. So it's really, like Anna was saying before, it's all connected to our health. Our breath is directly connected to our health, and I can't stop, you know, being excited about it. So it's really cool. I'll pass it on, but in terms of how important it is, it's just so important. Without trying to like throw it out there in people's faces, it's just like, it's helped me so much personally, and I've seen it in so many ways, you know. And so I come from a performance sports background. I've trained and coached a lot of high performers and actors in film and TV, and I've just got the pleasure of being able to see how they use the breath to get them into the right place to make their performance better. So it's just got so many aspects to it. There's so many ways you can get value out of it. I'm going to pass it on because I'm just going to keep blabbering. Yeah.
Hey, pardon?
I was just going to give an example if you want one.
Absolutely, yeah.
In terms of mental health, and I just thought, following on from what Mana's spoken about, you know, all of us at some time in our lives have been responsible for looking after people who aren't well, and that can often be quite stressful, and there's grief involved. And talking about my husband Noel, who got very unwell, and you know, you can't just walk out of the room and take a breath somewhere else, but what you can do is keep on breathing while you're with that person and looking after them and looking after your mental health as well. Because, you know, I just found, for me, it kept me sane, well, reasonably sane. And I'm not sure I would have coped if I hadn't known as much about breathing as I do. I don't know as much as you professionals, but I have used it a lot in a lot of stressful situations. But in terms of that mental health and coping with unwell people, or coping with your own unwellness, it's totally important. And it just, yeah, I think it keeps you going, keeps you grounded, keeps you positive, really, keeps the cup half full and not half empty. So that's my
Beautiful, man. Thank you. Hannah, did you have something to say on that too? Maybe the societal impacts and how we're not, I've been to whānau at home watching, I've been to the centre too, and don't know how to breathe properly. And Hannah has thankfully been able to. That was one of the first things she saw from me, was that I wasn't breathing properly, and they empowered me to create some strategies to do that better. So Hannah, maybe when we think about society as well, because we've spoken about the physiological impacts and the mental impacts and stuff, but as a society we're sitting a lot as well. So the impact on our bodies and how we're breathing, and maybe why we're not breathing properly. Like can we talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, definitely. Well, I guess kind of to deviate slightly from it a little bit, and just kind of rounding off what Mana and actually Carolyn and Nan have all said as well. There's with health, with grief, with mental health, with society, with everything that's going on in the world at the moment, there's so many things that we can't control, even our own health to a certain extent, and yet your breath is the one thing that you actually can control, and it has such an immediate effect on yourself, on your heart rate, on your blood pressure, on all of your stress hormones, on how red your face is going, because mine was going quite red before. And so you have this one tool that you have complete control over, that when you stop and think about it and actually instigate certain breathing techniques, you can actually control a whole lot of things that are happening with you. And I think, like we sit at a desk all day, and I'm not going to lie, I've got terrible posture, and I'm constant. So Nan and I were joking before about who's taller, and I'm definitely still winning. But it's I don't know, but it's your posture has a huge part in it, and the only way to truly engage your total lung capacity is if you are sitting up straight. I'm constantly reminding people that your rib cage, forget about all the other organs in there, but your rib cage is there to look after and protect your lungs, and your lungs go down near toward the bottom of your rib cage. So if you're all hunched over and you've got this really tight chest, there is no way you're going to be able to actually inflate your entire lungs. So sit up straight, and anytime, like we use little dots that you stick on your computer or on your desk, or some people I tell to set an alarm on their phone so it goes off every hour, especially if there's someone like Nat who's constantly looking at their phone, to remind them to do, sorry Nat, threw it in there, to do like 5 breaths every hour. And it might just be sit there, do what we did at the start and count your breathing, and automatically you'll sit up straight. You won't realize it, but you will. Your head will go back, and you'll be in this perfect posture, and you'll be concentrating on your breath and doing all this good stuff for you without even realizing it. Yeah. Beautiful. Sorry, did that answer the question at all?
Yeah, it did. It's like, because that's one reason why people don't breathe properly, right? So as a society, we're sitting at our desks way too much, and we're hunching over, we've got bad posture. So physically, we can't breathe properly until we know that we're doing it wrong almost, right?
Yeah.
What are other ways, or why don't people breathe properly other than the fact that we sit at our desk? Grief, Nan touched on.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And also it's a learned habit.
Like
I wasn't taught how to breathe as a kid. I watched my mum have asthma and have breathing issues her whole life, and it's only been in the last few years that she's finally got that sorted. But we're not taught how to breathe as kids. I know there are some really cool programs, particularly around mindfulness in schools now, and they're learning about breathing and the importance of it, for concentrating and learning and things, and that's awesome. But yeah, it is a learned habit, but there's also a whole lot of other reasons as to why we don't breathe properly. The air quality as well. If you're sitting in aircon all day, it dries out your sinuses. Plus, if you're in a city and it doesn't smell so good, you might not want to be taking deep breaths. I don't know. Yeah.
Or if you're rushing, I find sometimes if I'm rushing, well, I used to do it quite a lot, and I think, whoa, I'm holding my breath,
Mhm.
breathe. And so I think that's quite a common one I've talked to people about when you're rushing or stressed and you hold your breath. So just remind yourself to relax and breathe.
Awesome.
Can I jump in on that one?
Absolutely.
Because I think part of it also is obviously education. Growing up without anyone really sharing good stuff, other than the old school way I remember was I'll just take a deep breath, or do 5 breaths and relax, chill out. But yeah, it may be part of that, and it is cool. I'm seeing it more in schools now that there's the mindfulness aspect. However, that's probably just touching on a small part of what breathing can really offer. And I know Caroline could probably add to this, because it's breathing to me is also a cure for stuff. It's a preventative thing as well. My son, for example, has a really small nasal passage. He has this, it's deviated. We're looking into it more and more. We're taking him to specialists. He hasn't been able to breathe through his nose since he was born, pretty much. So he has breathed through his mouth forever. And that has caused a lot of health issues for him. And it's funny because I only started really looking at it the more I started looking at my own journey with breathing or breath work. And it was really noticeable while he was sleeping. He was snoring. He was gasping for air. He was yawning while he was asleep. We took him to the, some of the specialists, and they said we have to remove tonsils and adenoids. So we got those removed, and it still continued. So he still had the problem, and I was looking more into it, going, why is he still, having this problem? Some of the health issues that he had was that he was his posture. Like you were talking about posture, Hannah. His posture is just completely down here all the time, because he's not having this full breaths. He's always breathing through his mouth, so he's always up here in his chest, and his shoulders are always quite tight. And he's got a different mood to my other son, who sleeps next to him, and he sleeps like a mouse. He's just quiet. He's got this gentle way about him, and I can see the two right next to each other, like, and the health differences, the mood differences. So yeah, nasal breathing is a big one. I think I could just pass that on to someone else soon, but nasal versus mouth breathing, I think is something that's a real hot topic at the moment within the breathing world.
Why is that, Carolyn or Anna? What's going on there physiologically?
And I think, it sounds like your son, Mana's got issues with his upper airways, and we know that can have a huge impact on sleep quality and be a big factor of obstructive sleep apnea. We sort of think that sleep apnea tends to affect more older people, more often men than women, and more often adults than children. But sleep apnea can be a problem even from early childhood, and can have a huge impact on kiddies' development, their mood, their ability to learn and focus at school. And we know that if these problems continue, or if people get worsening sleep apnea, which is very often related to upper airways obstruction, nasal obstruction, in addition to other factors, then that can also have a great impact on quality of life. So sleep disorder breathing, obstructive sleep apnea can have a big impact on other health problems like high blood pressure and heart disease, but it can also affect people's quality of lives, because as we're adults, we can often have worsening daytime sleepiness and poor mood, and it really affects our whole lives.
And so we're talking about that at the centre. We talk about it a lot, and Anna, you've already kind of touched on this about that holistic health. So at the core of it, at the core of everything, the breath can really make a difference to our overall hauora, right? So learning how to breathe and creating strategies to support that is incredibly important. And it's so awesome to hear that our tamariki are into their educational regime, we're hearing about mindfulness and breathing and just taking a breath, taking it slowly, which is great. As health practitioners then, how do you incorporate breathing into your everyday lives? Ooh. What are the strategies that you guys employ in your everyday life to breathe better?
So for myself, I quite often practice that exercise that we did at the beginning of the meeting. So if I'm asked to do a public speaking session or teaching, or if I'm having to break bad news to whānau, then I will quite often do a few breathing exercises just to ground myself, calm myself, and I can find that can be really useful. I also use, occasionally I'll suffer from some insomnia if I've got a lot on my brain, the busy brain. So occasionally I'll use similar sorts of breathing exercises, counting the breath when I breathe in, counting the breath when I breathe out, to help me get off to sleep. And that's one of the most effective ways of us managing insomnia. So I use that.
I agree with Carolyn on that one, because I use that as well, and I use it a lot, and I find, yeah, and the breathing in, and then as we did at the beginning, just build up to breathing out for longer than breathing in, and just doing it slowly and calmly. And the counting for me focuses my brain and gets rid of all that other busy stuff, and when it comes back in again, you just don't get cross, but just kind of start counting again. And then even if you don't go back to sleep sometimes, at least you've been lying there, you're relaxed, and you've been breathing and getting in your oxygen and getting out your carbon dioxide and being calm.
Yeah, and I think I'm a terrible one for do as I say, not as I do, but I must admit over the last, at least the last several months, I have been making a much more concerted effort, particularly around my breath. After doing a stupid event, potentially having some COVID thrown in there somewhere, certainly the recovery from that for me hasn't been great, and like fatigue, like I've never had before, energy just down the drain, and not sleeping. My sleep's been really, really bad. So I've certainly been utilizing a lot more breathing as often as I can throughout the day. So I've actually started using, every time I hit send on an email, I do 2 breaths. That's kind of my little trigger. And in bed at night, I also do it. I've been trying to get back into a bit more frequent exercise as well. And I've been very aware that my heart rate kind of has been going really high, really quickly, and staying quite high for as long as I keep exercising for. So I've been trying to use my breath to try and stabilize that and just keep it a bit lower, and bring it down a lot quicker, which has been really working for me. It's not something that, like, you can't just start using your breath and have effects straight away. To a certain extent you can, like calming down, but it takes a lot of practice for breathing to feel normal and natural. It's learning a new habit, a new routine. So particularly for me with exercise, I've been exercising forever. I've only really started thinking about my breath when I've been exercising maybe over the past few years, but it's something that I have to practice all the time in order for it to actually feel easy. Even says me, who tells several people every single day what you should be doing. Yeah.
Mana, did you have something to add?
Oh yeah, it's beautiful to hear everybody talk about their techniques and tools. I guess that's the lost art there, because breathing is free. You don't have to pay to go and get breathing. You just have to start taking a bit of time to think about how you're doing it and being aware of it. So one of the gems that I found out is so simple. It's helped me lots, and it's something I always share is purely just trying to take a moment and just and see where you're actually breathing from, the nose or the mouth, because the two make a major difference to what goes on within your body and your mind. So that's what I do. I try, if I'm rushing, if I'm speeding around and doing things lots, I try to just take a moment and, okay, I need to breathe through my nose, because breathing through my nose it's a smaller passageway. So it takes in less air. So that means I have to slow down the air to get it in. And it has all these awesome benefits too, that when you breathe through your nose, you're getting warm air, and it's creating some awesome stuff that goes down and sends off the right chemicals within your body, basically. Whereas if you're breathing, oh, sorry, go on.
No, which is brilliant, because we just had some patai come through online.
Yeah.
What are the advantages to breathing through your nose than your mouth? So you've just mentioned moist air or something?
Yeah. So it warms the air. That's one really good thing, as opposed to breathing in through the mouth. You're getting cold air coming in straight into the lungs.
And so why is that good or bad?
Yeah, that's a good question. I'll throw that out to someone else, actually. My knowledge goes only so far.
Yes, I think ideally we should try and breathe through our nose. Then the air is warmed, humidified, so there's moisture within it. A lot of the debris that we inhale all day, dog hair, dust, some of the bacteria, fungi and viruses may be trapped in our nose rather than going straight into our lungs. So our nose is quite a vital part of our, sort of immune system, of our respiratory system. So ideally we should try and breathe through our nose so that our air is sort of cleaner and it's warmer and humidified, so we're less likely to dry out our lower airways. And there's probably also benefit for breathing through our nose to help save our teeth as well. So if we breathe through our mouths all the time, then we may be a bit more risk of having dental issues.
I wouldn't know. What? Because of the air going in what? What does it...
So I think if we're sort of breathing through our mouths all the time, and there's other factors, but we may be more likely to have dental decay and issues like that.
Wow.
So ideally we should try and breathe through our noses.
Another patai that's come through online. Kia ora, any advice around breathing and mask wearing? It seems easier to mouth breathe versus nose when wearing masks at work.
Yeah, I've certainly found that. Sorry, Nan. We've been using, because we have to use obviously the N95s when we're doing assessments, and I stupidly ordered the flat ones, not the cool duck beak ones, which have a bit more space. And I've noticed without even thinking about it, start breathing through my mouth. And it's particularly because I do a lot of talking as well. And it just, yeah, as you know.
So I love it. Bring it on.
Thanks. A good friend of mine who's a GP, she actually gave me the really good trick initially, like early on when we first started wearing masks, because she was finding the same thing, was actually to put a drop of essential oil in your mask, one that ideally you like the smell of. And so you actually start nose breathing because you're trying to smell it. And that really calmed me. I was actually finding, as soon as someone left an assessment, I had to rip my mask off because I was feeling almost quite anxious, which was weird. But then I realized I'd actually just been breathing through my mouth. I'd probably been hyperventilating in this small space. But actually, when you stop and you just try and focus on your breath through your nose, even with the mask on, you can control it to a certain extent. I know Nan's had a good experience of that recently. Well.
Yes, I find I have got a bit of a limited oxygen uptake, I suppose you could say, and so masks are just an extra thing I have to deal with. But I find actually if I have a decent mask, like what are they called?
The duck bill.
Yeah. Well, no, not as good as those. The other one.
Yeah.
Anyway, as long as I breathe through my nose and out through my mouth and just control my breathing, I find I'm okay. But I'm not okay for a long time. I don't really like to have a mask on. If I'm going to the supermarket, I just keep a short list because I have to get out of there and take my mask off. I was at Wellington Airport the other day and it was noisy and I'm deaf. I couldn't hear the announcer and I had to sit there and I was quite flustered and I thought, so Nan, just sit down. Don't try and do anything. Just shut your eyes, get near enough so you can open them and read the screen. And I just pulled my mask out a little bit, breathe for a bit, and then put it on again. And so I find that really helps for people. There'll be a lot of people like me who have a few breathing difficulties. That really helps. Reminder, breathe slowly and low and slow and calm your mind.
Oh, lovely, man. And so at the end of that, you were able to just calm yourself where you were, connect in, and then not be so anxious.
Yeah.
By employing those techniques. Beautiful. Okay. What is asthma and what impact does that have on our breathing, Carolyn?
So asthma is a very common problem, probably affects 20% of the New Zealand population. So it's a chronic condition affecting the lungs. It's an inflammatory problem leading to reversible airways obstructions. So there can be different things within the environment which can trigger the inflammation, can trigger our airways to intermittently constrict. So patients may, or people with asthma may have flares of symptoms. So people with asthma may report breathlessness or wheeze or coughing. They may cough up some rubbish. There can be different things within the environment that can trigger symptoms. So exposure to things in the environment that we may be allergic to, so pollens or cat hair, dog hair, and smoking. And also infections can trigger flares of symptoms. And, so it's a very, very common problem within New Zealand, and unfortunately a lot of our local people struggle with asthma at times, from time to time. And I think breathing and is very important, or having good control of our breathing and being conscious of the way we breathe can help sort of really calm us down, because anyone who has a chronic respiratory condition, whether it's asthma or COPD or emphysema, will experience flares of their symptoms and may feel more breathless at different times. And the more breathless we feel, the more breathless we get. And so a lot of our patients with chronic respiratory conditions can sometimes end up in a downward spiral of feeling more and more breathless and more panicked, which just worsens their situation. So being mindful of our breathing and trying to help people who suffer with long-term respiratory conditions to slow down their breathing is often very comforting, and will mean that they'll have less of a symptom burden.
And so, Anna, do you have any insights into why Māori have such high rates of respiratory illnesses, such as asthma?
Yeah, I mean, there's lots of reasons why Māori seem to have more asthma than non-Māori. And what Carolyn said about what the triggers are, there is potential that potentially Māori are more susceptible, or more those triggers act more for Māori than they do for non-Māori. So a tendency to be triggered by some of those things that are common triggers. Unfortunately, a lot of our whānau might live in homes that aren't warm and dry, and environments like that are not just for asthma but for other respiratory conditions. Damp, cold environments, we all know, aren't great for us being able to breathe well. So that's one thing. there's some diet stuff as well. That's not just pertaining to Māori, by the way. You know, if you've got a tendency to be affected by inflammatory conditions, and you eat an inflammatory diet, foods that cause inflammation, things like all of the this isn't a nutrition talk, so I'm not going to go back to that one.
Not tonight.
Yeah, so so there's probably some kind of I'm not going to say it's probably, I don't know about the research about the genetic tendency for Māori to have more asthma, but there's possibly something like that. There's not a lot of research around that, so we can't say that that is true or not. Sometimes it's about the fact that Māori tend to live in homes that have got more people in them, stereotypically, than other New Zealanders. And of course, when you're living with lots of people and you're all breathing around each other, then you've got a higher tendency to pick up, you know, from other people, or share different things, and there are more triggers around because there are more of you. And then also because sometimes the environments that we are forced to live in aren't conducive to having a well respiratory system.
Okay.
Carolyn, is there anything else?
I think you know, the way in which we medically have managed asthma has changed over recent years with further medical research, and I think unfortunately some Māori patients may have less access to GPs, and so therefore don't build up that great relationship with GPs and practice nurses to help formulate self-management plans, because asthma is a long-term chronic disease, and really we want to be able to manage our own condition. But if Māori family members have less access to their own GP or their own practice nurse, then they don't build up those relationships and don't have access to the education, which is really important to manage asthma as a long-term condition. And I think it's really important that patients with asthma should have appropriate inhalers. So in times gone by, we may just have used the blue puffer, but the blue puffer doesn't treat the underlying inflammation that drives asthma. So it's really important that anyone who has asthma should have an up-to-date asthma review with their practice nurse or their GP, so that they have an anti-inflammatory inhaler. So we tend to prescribe inhaled steroids and the bronchodilator rather than just the simple blue puffer, which just temporarily masks symptoms but doesn't actually treat or manage the underlying problem. So it doesn't really help in the long term.
Okay, so a lot of environmental factors kind of is what I was hearing in that last one, that support those sad Māori statistics. So we've spoken a little bit about sleeping. How can breathing assist when trying to fall asleep or quiet the mind? Nan, do you want to have a kōrero about this?
I could, but Carolyn probably knows more about it. So I'll just briefly say what I do the same as I mentioned when I wake up in the night and, you know, have to go to the loo and then can't go back to sleep. So I do my breathing and counting. And counting for me is the important one. But other people will have a method which calms their mind. But I find for me, it just helps me control my thoughts or get rid of the other thoughts without getting all anxious about it. And so, yeah, that for me, and the belly breathing, that, well, I call it belly breathing, which is low and slow, but Carolyn or Mana might like to talk a bit more about that than me.
Who wants to talk about belly breathing?
Yeah.
Hannah?
I don't know what you call it, Carolyn, but just, you know, that using the whole lungs, basically.
No, I think deep breathing is great. And I think you've described it perfectly, really. Sort of low, slow, sort of counting as we breathe in and trying to add on 50% to that number when we breathe out. Sort of low and slow exhale really helps calm the mind, calm the brain, and can be really helpful if we're struggling with insomnia.
Yeah, and we often, like, there's belly breathing, there's diaphragmatic breathing, And then for people that struggle to kind of get the belly moving, especially if they've never done deep breaths before, can sometimes be just putting your hands over your lower ribs. I sometimes find that one is the best to do, particularly if you're pretty tight through the upper chest. Just having your hands over your lower ribs. So even when you are lying in bed, you can just sort of put them, over your lower ribs and just try and feel them expand as you inhale. And then, the 50% longer on the exhale, either in through the nose, but out through the nose or mouth. As Nan said, counting certainly helps. And that's more from a keep your mind focused on what you're doing rather than drifting off to all of those other jobs that you'd forgotten to do or that you need to do tomorrow and that are going to keep you awake for another 2 hours. I often tell people, try and do 20 breaths, and the chances of you actually making it to 20 before you fall asleep, pretty slim. And if you do make it to 20, I'm really sorry, but just do another 20. Hopefully that'll work.
Yeah.
Not even a whole nother strategy, Hannah. It's just efficient. It's efficient.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I've had a couple of parts that come in online. Can being overweight affect our breathing? And do some, there's two here. Can being overweight affect our breathing, and do some sprays affect this, i.e. sprays in the kiwi fruit industry? So I think there's two questions in that. Can being overweight affect our breathing?
Yeah. I'll answer the first one, you can answer the second one. I think, certainly being overweight can affect it, and one of the main reasons for that is purely around weight on the chest, especially when we're lying down and trying to sleep. That's extra weight that your lungs have to overcome in order to be able to inhale deep, so it can be harder to get that inhale deep. And so some people do find if they prop themselves up a little bit, so add a couple of pillows, not just under the neck, but actually under your lower back, under your shoulders to lift you up a little bit, can help. And then I'll pass over to Carolyn.
So being overweight means that we're more likely to suffer from asthma, and being overweight or obese are more likely to contribute to other conditions which can trigger asthma symptoms. So if we're carrying extra weight, we're more likely to suffer from acid reflux, and acid reflux is very often a very common trigger for asthma and asthma type symptoms. Overweight and obesity is certainly a big problem for a lot of our patients who are breathless. In terms of the kiwi fruit industry, yes, I mean that people working in the kiwi fruit industry work extremely hard. So in the orchards, it's extremely physical work. Recently where I live, I've seen young chaps out there picking the kiwi fruit very early in the morning, and it's hard physical work, a very dusty environment. And yes, I think there is some evidence that some of the sprays that are used in the kiwi fruit industry may not be so good for our long-term respiratory health.
And that's just that kind of foreign matter being inhaled and into our bodies.
Some of that is the dust, but certainly there are some overseas studies that have shown that some of the pesticides and so on can be detrimental to our lungs, but I don't know whether those are chemicals that are used here in New Zealand.
Now this is a biggie. How does breathing well help with our stress? Whether it's grief or stress, or who wants to kick this bad boy off? Mana? Hannah?
Sure. I work with a lot of people that are dealing with anxiety, which is, stress that has gone to another level, really, affecting their everyday life, affecting their physical well-being and their mental well-being, and you can see it straight away if you're paying attention to them, that they're holding a lot of their stuff up here, and a lot of it ties in with trauma, And that's possibly what a lot of our people could be, Māori could be, you know, that is what could be related with asthma as well, was maybe potentially traumatic experiences and stress causing, you know, inflammation in the body. But the anxieties is directly, I feel, can be worked through with the breath, because I feel like we get into a bit of a loop. From what I've seen, we get into a loop of holding on and then recreating with the breathing, high, shallow breathing. We create this loop within our body that it becomes a bit of a habit. And if we can just find a moment to, like we've all been talking about, like stop and find a way to use those breaths, those 4 in and those 6 out. That's a nice way to just cut that loop of stress, which will give you a bit of body and mind, a bit of time to just and come down to a place where the anxiety can just lessen a bit. I kind of forgot the question, but it's I see it lots, and it's like to bring up breathing for a lot of whaiora that I work with. It's quite a hard in at the moment. I don't know why. It's the culture right now that we're in, maybe. But it's so evident when I see it. I can see it locked up here. I can see the clothes off. I can see the shoulders up. I can see the tension. And, you know, like Nan was saying, and just being able to just take that time, regather, pull it, bring it back down, sit up straight, just helps with everything. Anyway, I'll shift that on.
I agree.
Yeah.
I came into the centre last year. I was having heart palpitations and completely stressed. I work a lot. I sit a lot at my desk. So the first thing that Hannah helped me with was understanding my breath. And so that was one way of just really being cognizant of the way I sit, to have mini breaks, to actually take a lunch break, little strategies that you can turn my phone off, you know, at night. So little strategies. But the other really cool strategy I found that worked for me, and I think everyone's different. I was running, I was exercising, but that didn't turn my mind off. What worked for me was surfing, and that was because I was rubbish at it. I'm completely, you know, you're out of your comfort zone, completely off balance, but completely in the moment. And I think I just felt so light afterwards, after a session, so just wanting to take it all in, whereas otherwise I'm going 50 miles an hour all the time, 7 days a week. The way I relax is to go out. So I'm high energy all the time. So being able to find strategies that worked for me, that was not normal. Like I don't even know why I thought to give it a go, because I didn't connect the two. But that whole turning off, where you have absolutely no option but to be in the moment, was incredibly powerful. So I think that was a big learning from that whole process.
Sorry to jump in, but that's really interesting. Because I guess there's so many things. You're out in nature. You're out with Tangaroa and Papatūānuku. You're doing everything that's like opening the awareness, but you cut that loop as well, You cut that loop that you were in, that stress loop, and it was a great moment. And when you were talking, I picked up another thing that is really key with I think with breathing is the letting go.
I agree.
Or on the exhale, and that's why I think it's like a longer exhale on that 4 and 6 out. You know, a lot of us are holding in our breath, our oxygen, our life force. We hold it up here, and that's the letting go. And I think when you went surfing, you let go. Yeah, and so it has a lot of scientific backing too, doesn't it? Like really.
No, I completely let go. So much so I was never on the board. I was in the water a lot.
I love surfing. I love surfing.
Yeah, it's good. It was good. But we're coming up. We've had a few other pato come in, but I think that was a really beautiful kōrero, and hopefully whānau at home are able to craft their own strategies. I think that's really important, is that you have to find the things that work for you. So I think if we could go around and just, if everyone could just talk about, you know, if there was one piece of advice that you could leave with whānau tonight, what would it be? And if we could go around and everybody give us their little gold nuggets for whānau to take away, that would be awesome. So if we could start with you, Caroline, what would that gold nugget be?
I think look after your lungs and they will look after you. So we should be sort of think about how we're breathing, but also think about what we're breathing in, and, you know, don't smoke, don't vape, try and breathe in clean air within New Zealand. We're very lucky to have clean air here.
Yeah, absolutely. Beautiful. Nan?
I think consciously making breathing, improving your breathing, a part of everyday life. So you don't just do it now and then. You actually, when you're driving along the street, you consciously practice your breathing, or not even practice, you just don't, you know, you're aware of it. So I think that everydayness, that every situation you're in, whether it's very difficult or it's not difficult, just remind yourself to be conscious of your breathing.
Beautiful, Nan. Hannah?
I had two just in case Anna stole one of mine, but I think the biggest one is breathing gives you control, or you can control your breath. You can either hug your heart with your breath or pummel the shit out of it. So hug your heart, breathe slow, breathe deep, and it'll bring you a world of control that you never realized you had in this crazy world that we have outside at the moment.
Awesome. Mana?
Oh, kia ora, Nan and Hannah. That was epic. I'm just going to take what they said. Yeah. It's just beautiful. It's just, yeah. Breathing's free. It's like one of the best things to manage our health. Like it works. It just, yeah. Don't get too excited, Mana. If you're really interested in looking after yourself and your health, and you're really passionate about that, yeah, I just have a look at your breathing. Start there. That's where life begins. Okay, that's me.
Bye-bye. Anna, do you want to round us out?
Yeah, I had two as well, in case Hannah stole mine.
We should be twins. Vibing all the time.
Yeah, my one is when you start to feel the yucky feeling in your stomach, whatever that reason is for, that some kind of negative emotion that manifests kind of in your gut or in your chest, or, you know, that yucky feeling because you're having a yucky conversation or something bad has happened, or you perceive something bad has happened, or you're stressed. That's the trigger for you to remember to breathe, because I can guarantee you, because you feel like that you aren't breathing well. And so it's a really good reminder in a bad place to do a good thing for yourself. And that really helps physically and mentally, emotionally.
Ooh, perfect. Perfect little segue there, Anna, just to round us all out. Amazing.
Can we finish how we started?
Absolutely. I was going to say that. Kapa, go. You lead us.
All right, so whānau, we're going to finish how we started. We're going to do a couple of breaths so that you can roll back to the whānau after this and be nice and calm and happy. All right, so we're going to do 2 breaths in and 4 breaths out. 2 counts in, 4 counts out. All right, and breathe in and out. And in and out. Awesome.
Māori whānau, have a beautiful night, and we hope you've got some strategies to help you cope with your week, year, and future ahead. Ka kite.
Ka kite.